emission transformation. This event is co-organized by the Ministry of Economy, Environment and Agriculture of Ukraine, UNDP Ukraine, and GIZ. This event will focus on key achievements in Ukraine climate policy over recent years that included adoption of Ukraine's NDC until 2035, development of long-term low-emission development strategy that is awaiting its approval, and adoption of key climate policies in Ukraine. And today we will focus our discussion on how those strategies, how those key policies align themselves with each other, and how we ensure coherent climate policy in Ukraine in order to achieve climate resilient post-war recovery and mitigation policy in Ukraine that is aligned with other sectoral policies. My name is Rimma Kуштим. I am Program Component Manager at the IKI Interface project implemented by GIZ Ukraine, and I will have the honor to moderate today's discussion. We have panelists online and offline, so I would like to invite our offline panelists to the stage to join me here. I invite Nuri Ozbagatli, climate change specialist for Europe and Central Asia, United Nations Development Program, and Galina Tripolska, leading research officer, Institute for Economics and Forecasting of the National Academy of Science of Ukraine. Yeah, you're welcome to join me here. And to start our event, I would like to invite Mr. Pavlo Kарташов, Deputy Minister of Economy, Environment and Agriculture to Ukraine, to provide us with key remarks, with key speaking points on how Ukraine is aligning its climate policy with other sectoral policies, how key strategic documents in Ukraine are developed in the way that provide a clear pathway for Ukraine, for Ukraine's recovery and Ukraine decarbonization. Mr. Pavlo Kарташов? Oh, okay. I can see that he is still speaking, so he will join in a couple of moments. And I know that we have Mr. Oleg Bondarenko online. We should have him. Mr. Bondarenko is the head of Verkhovna Rada Committee on Environmental Policy and Nature Management. So, Mr. Bondarenko, it's our honor to welcome you at Ukraine's Pavilion today. So you are welcome to give us your guidance on how Ukrainian Parliament is ensuring Ukrainian climate policy in a to provide the coherent guidance, and how the government of Ukraine is cooperating with Ukrainian Parliament to ensure the climate policy in Ukraine is sustainable and providing the strategic overview for Ukraine's development.
Hello, dear colleagues. Do you hear me? Okay.
We can hear you and we can see you well.
Thank you, dear colleagues. So today we are discussing decisions that will shape Ukraine's development for decades to come. Last year at COP29, Ukraine presented its ambitious goal of achieving net zero emission by 2050 and adopting a climate law. We emphasized then that setting ambitious targets is not enough. What truly matters is having a clear roadmap to achieve them. Without this, no transformation can succeed. That is why today's discussion is pivotal. The comprehensive low-carbon strategy must address the key challenges of our future development. How Ukraine will rebuild, modernize its economy, support business, integrate in the European market, and align with the European Green Deal. We are operating amidst a full-scale war while facing enormous tasks, ensuring energy security, strengthening resilience, attracting investment, and maintaining our climate ambitions. This is a difficult balance, but it is essential to keep Ukraine competitive and firmly on the path towards European integration. Today, we are defining how to combine the country's recovery with long-term decarbonization. The outcomes of our discussion will directly influence government decisions, business models, and Ukraine's investment attractiveness. It is therefore crucial that our approach is systematic, consistent, and realistic, one that can be implemented even under current conditions. We need a foundation that enables coherent, predictable decisions and ensures steady, responsible progress. To achieve this, we are aligning our midterm tactics, the national determined contribution NDC with our strategic horizon, the LT-LEDS. This alignment is not merely a bureaucratic exercise. It is a clear signal, to investors and partners. First, as legislators, we are creating a transparent legal framework. The climate law acts as a backbone, ensuring that our environmental targets are legally binding and integrated into every sector of the economy, from energy to heavy industry. Second, we view the green recovery as a pragmatic necessity. Restoring our destroyed infrastructure offers a unique opportunity to leapfrog outdated technologies. Decentralizing our energy system and adopting energy efficient standards now, we are building a resilient state capable of withstanding both military aggression and climate challenges. So, excuse me. Excuse me, dear colleagues. Right now we are ready to European integration, and European integration is our compass. Harmonizing our policies with EU emission trading system and preparing for CBAM is vital for our export-oriented economy. We are doing our homework for ensure Ukraine is not just a partner, but an integral part of the European green market. Colleagues, Ukraine is proving that it is possible to fight for freedom and for climate simultaneously. Our vision is clear: a modern, secure, and decarbonized Ukraine. Now, through the alignment of our strategies and the support of our partners, we are turning this vision into concrete action. Thank you.
Thank you a lot, Mr. Bondarenko, and thank you for joining us online today. I know that you have intensive work right now in the Parliament. So we really appreciate us today for this discussion. And of course, indeed, Ukraine has achieved a lot despite ongoing war and the struggle of Ukraine fighting the Russian aggression. These climate policies that Ukraine and climate goals that Ukraine is setting right now, it's not only the goals. A lot of practical steps and a lot of instruments are being introduced in Ukraine in order to achieve and facilitate achievement of those goals. And today we are going not only discuss how the climate policies in Ukraine provided for by LT-LEDS, NDC, and other policy documents are aligned, but also how climate policy instruments and measures are ensured in Ukraine in order to provide the clear pathway for Ukrainian business, for all of Ukrainian stakeholders to achieve these climate goals despite ongoing war of aggression. And of course, as Mr. Bondarenko mentioned that Ukraine recovery process is a necessary step for Ukraine, is a necessary pathway for Ukraine. And in order to ensure that this recovery process is green, is followed by the principle of build back better. We need to think right now ahead of how Ukrainian policies, climate policies in particular, can contribute to achievement of reconstruction goals of Ukraine and ensuring that in the future Ukrainian economy is resilient and decarbonized in the future. Thank you, Mr. Bondarenko, once again. And as we already announced, our Deputy Minister of Economy, Environment and Agriculture is joining us today for the welcoming remarks. Yeah, I would like to check whether Mr. Kartashov is ready. Yeah. So, Mr. Kartashov, we welcome you at our panel. Thank you for joining us. We know that you have very busy schedule here, and we noticed that you were just speaking to the journalists. And of course, it's nice that Ukraine has a lot to present today and at this climate conference in Belém. Thank you for joining us, and I invite you for the welcoming remarks to present the government point of view of how Ukraine is ensuring the coherent approach in its climate policy and recovery policy.
Good morning, everyone. My pleasure to be here with you today. First of all, I would like to say a couple of things about our climate agenda. Recently, probably as you're aware, the government of Ukraine adopted the NDC, latest NDC, where our commitment, our CO2 reduction aspiration was set as 65% plus. So basically, that was a very balanced approach, because from one side we have more ambitious probably aspiration, but from the other side, huge damage caused by the war, and we have a lot of additional CO2 emissions caused by the war, and obviously there was a big discussion within the government how we need to tackle this. And I believe, in my understanding, the numbers which was set up and approved by the government are quite balanced, because from one side we have our climate aspirations and our ambitions, but from the other we need to develop our economy. We need a lot of reconstruction and restoration. So I believe this is something which is have a very good ground. Also, we have designed our low carbon emission strategy, LEDS, and this is something which is already being finalized, and this was developed together with our international partners, with the UNDP support and other GIZ-funded project support. And basically, this is the document we have at the final stage, and now we are communicated to expert group, which is headed by Vice Prime Minister Kachka, and now there are a lot of different comments, including business association and including different expert groups. So now we are trying to finalize the version of the document, which will be accepted by everyone, and this is gonna be submitted to government approval as well. Also, what is on our agenda is we have started designing our ETS system. So basically, we have internal consultation how it should be arranged, because there are different approaches, whether we need to implement ETS, EU ETS system straight away, or we need to adjust it and to make a more flexible approach, which is more long-term approach, but which will affect business probably less. So this is something we discuss internally, and basically we already started our consultation with European Union, because obviously not all the elements could be approved, could be accepted, and this is something which we're going to present very soon. So now we are finalizing our concept, our ETS design, and after our consultation with business association, with government, probably we'll present it to the public, and we expect a good discussion among different stakeholders, trying to get feedback, and afterwards probably we will amend the existing action plan, and we will start to implement concrete measures. So that is what we have on our climate agenda. And one more thing, which is need to be mentioned, is Article 6. So basically, we also started to design a pilot project within Article 6 of Paris Agreement, and I believe this is a very, very effective and very good mechanism aimed at decarbonization and aimed at implementing additional innovative projects, innovative technologies. And this is also we designing with our business, Ukrainian business. For example, one of our partners is the European Business Association. They have an environmental committee, and they have very good expertise with regard to ETS. So basically, what we do right now, we're trying to use as many different tools to make sure we have decarbonization going on. We have our international commitments in place, and from the other, we talking to different governments. Today we have different many bilateral meetings planned, and discussing additional possibilities, what kind of technical support we can get from them, what programs or projects we can do together. So that is something why we came here, why we sitting here, why we're speaking here. So.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Kарташов. And your colleagues are already speaking to us and asking for you to leave, of course. But thank you for joining the discussion, and thank you for these important messages.
Thank you.
Thank you, dear colleagues. And now with these messages from our leaders, from our political leaders, we can start our more or less expert discussion on alignment of NDC, LT-LEDS, and other climate policies in Ukraine in order to achieve Ukrainian climate ambitions. And as Mr. Kарташов pointed out, Ukraine wants to be ambitious and wants to be a front runner in its climate ambitions and its climate policy. But on the other hand, Ukraine is in extreme condition currently as it's fighting the war, the full-scale invasion of Russian Federation. And of course, Ukraine is is facing the challenges that no other countries has faced before. And as Mr. Kарташов pointed out, our goals need to be ambitious, but on the other hand, they need to be realistic. And in order to achieve and provide good basis for achieving climate, we need to use the instruments and my approach in climate policy of Ukraine and ensuring the economic decarbonization of Ukraine. And I would like to Mr. Ozbagatli from UNDP. UNDP is working a lot in different countries in supporting their climate ambitions and supporting development of different instruments in climate policy. So from the perspective of this international cooperation, what approaches do you use and do you recommend to the countries, including Ukraine, to ensure this holistic approach and coherence in climate policies, including long-term, mid-term, and short-term ambitions?
Thank you very much, and it's great to be here with Ukrainian colleagues. So I want to first congratulate Ukraine for submitting the NDC, which is 65% plus based on the 99 baseline year. And I also want to congratulate that the link between the NDCs and future development with long-term strategy, aligning the need of the country in terms of the reconstruction and recovery is well aligned. And this policy coherence is very important. And I also want to highlight that the UNDP working with the whole UN system is well tested and verified during the NDC preparation, over 100 countries. And Ukraine is one of them, and we are very proud to be a partner with Ukraine government during this process for NDC preparation. Now, the critical part is about the implementation. And for the implementation, the main perspective is looking from the sustainable development perspective and see how NDCs are working together with the development of a country while making the climate resilience and also resilient for the other shocks. And when talking about other shocks, I mean, as you said, Ukraine is maybe the single country showing how all the world can go down, but still Ukrainian people continue consistently and committed to make change. So as I always say, there are many things we can learn from you, from Ukrainian people and Ukrainian government, and see how it can help for the other countries dealing with multiple crises. And the multiple crises sometimes can be with climate related, sometimes can be about geopolitics, but there will be always a crisis. There will be always a risk. And it is remarkable showing how Ukraine can be firm, stand firm, and work on solutions. And as the Deputy Minister highlighted, there are all different pathways for going to decarbonization. And those pathways are, some are highlighted well in the Paris Agreement during the UNFCCC process, like Article 6, like emission trading systems. But there are also some other issues that is not still clear on trade issues, on just transition, where we are here in COP30 to identify this. And one part is critically important at that level, looking from the country perspective, where all the member states are here and putting the country needs, capabilities on the table for achieving the 1.5 target. So Ukraine is putting this in a concrete example with this NDC, with aligning the long-term strategy and low emission development strategy, but also keeping that all climate-related discussions in the heart of the reconstruction and recovery process. So I think this way of forward is critically important to make the society, planet, and whole country, whole economy, whole society approach doing things together. And that's why UNDP is now again tasked by the Secretary General himself during the leadership summit for NDC implementation with all UN agencies. And we call it Climate Promise Forward. And what UNDP will do is under 4 pillars. First is about policy coherence. So whatever we do in NDCs, in terms of NDC implementation, those activities should be aligned with the country's development perspective, which will lead with the development plans, finance plans, sectoral plans. And one part is also about finance. So how NDC implementation finance needs will be put onto the broader landscape of finance. which is domestic and international, public and private. And here, Ukraine case is another challenge. As we know, more than, $500 billion is needed for the recovery of the country. That can be also an investment for the greening the future of Ukraine people and country. So, making the investment plans for climate, it is also possible to make this investment for the resilience, reconstruction, and recovery of the country. And the third one, after policy coherence and finance, is about engagement. We need to engage everyone. It is state, non-state actors, it is private sector, it is youth, it is academia, and this is related with really the quick but also just transition. We need to make sure that the NDC implementation aligned with SDGs highlight the principle of leave no one behind. And the last one, but actually it is not because of the number 4 and last, because it is going together. It is about integrated solutions. So how we can make a action that is good for people, good for planet, and good for prosperity. So that's why now in UNDP regional hub in Istanbul, we have a system to understand single activity in any sector, in any economic process, or in any social development process can make multiple impacts. Let's say if we want to decrease the emissions because of from a sector, how we can make sure it is also good for jobs, it is also good for the future skills, how we can make sure that reconstruction and investment for the infrastructure will not only increase the capability for trade and the economy, but also increase the capability for risk reduction related to any disasters. So within all these perspectives, we want to work with the government of Ukraine to understand much better how we can do this together, and then show some good examples that NDC implementation is an investment and opportunity for sustainable development of a country and future of people. So let me stop here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ozbagakli. It's inspiring, and I think it's important that Ukrainian partners are supporting the government and other stakeholders, not only at policy development, but at the policy implementation. So supporting the whole cycle, because the government, of course, when government comes to adoption of the measures, particular measures to achieve policy goals, it can be puzzled with all of those that have been set for them. And it's nice that partners of Ukraine are supporting with the guidance, with expert support, with engaging of stakeholders. And of course, in Ukraine's conditions, it's of enormous importance to have the partners by the side of the government to ensure those approaches that have been set and those principles that have been set in climate policies, they are achieved in implementation. So thank you so much. And it's nice to hear that this approach, this integrated approach, whole of society approach is continued in your work, in UNDP's work. And you mentioned modeling as one of key instruments for climate policy implementation, climate policy formation. And in Ukraine, we are lucky to have the team of who ensures the modeling development for almost all of the climate policy documents. We have great experts who are ensuring the science-based and data-based solutions in climate policy are there in Ukraine. So I would like to pass the floor to Mr. Podolets and Mr. Dachuk to give the presentation about development of NDC and LT-LEDS and how those documents are aligned and how the data and modeling is powering the alignment of climate policy in Ukraine. So the floor is yours. You're welcome to speak.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very glad to see you all in Belém, and really appreciate for inviting us to join your discussion today. Let me check. how I should better share my presentation. I will share the entire screen. Probably it should work. And please let me know.
We can see your presentation, but it's not the full screen size yet. Yeah, now it works.
So our colleagues from the parliament and from the government in their welcoming words, and then they already made their introduction on the latest achievements, the latest climate policy document that the government has just recently adopted in Ukraine. But truly, I would start this talk already from the National Energy and Climate Plan that was adopted still a year ago.
Sorry, Roman, can you repeat once again because the connection was lost for a minute?
I said that our colleagues had made an introduction and they were talking about the latest achievement of the government, but I would really start this talk from the National Energy and Climate Plan that was adopted still a year ago. That was the very first document of this, let's say, family of climate policy documents in Ukraine. And then in October, we finally got the law of Ukraine on the basic principles of state climate policy, where we implemented the European climate law in Ukraine. And this law actually specifies the role and the place of the National Energy and Climate Plan, Low Emission Development Strategy, and NECP in the full hierarchy of the climate policy documents in Ukraine. We prepared the draft of the low emission development in the first quarter of this year. And just recently, as the Deputy Minister said, the second NDC was adopted. And besides that, the first biennial transparency report was also prepared. And finally, the Minister of Economy works on the updating of the National Energy and Climate Plan, which is supposed to be finished at the beginning of the next year. And our institute was engaged to the development of all these documents. So we were not the main developers, or we were not the only developers of these documents, but we are engaged. And for so many times, we've been asking how much these documents are aligned between each other. We still have these questions, and that's why we prepared this presentation in order to show how Ukraine meets these requirements, because truly there are requirements, very strict requirements about these consequences. Firstly, in the European legislation, and secondly, in the Ukrainian legislation, this climate law, what I just mentioned, about the consistency between long-term development strategy, between NDC, and between National Energy and Climate Plan. Actually, what consistency we are talking about? First of all, about the targets, about the indicators. Then, if LT-LEDS set the midterm target, mostly we are talking about the target on greenhouse gas emission reduction, but also for LT-LEDS is supposed to set the target on the share of renewable energy, on GDP intensity, carbon intensity, or energy intensity as well, and also LT-LEDS is supposed to set the priorities in various spheres of in various sectors. And then NDC, if NDC set the midterm contribution target, that NECP actually doesn't set the target. NECP examines if the targets are supposed to be met based on those set of policies and measures that are identified and specified in the NECP. And finally, the BTR, the transparency reports, provides more detailed information about each of these policies, about the consequences of this policy. Then it doesn't consider targets themselves, but more likely it considers how it specifies that those targets were met. Then the second where these documents have to be aligned. This is a policies and measures. Then strategic documents sets just imperatives and define priorities. The real policies and measures, they are specified exactly in the LT-LEDS. Of course, those policies and measures could be specified in various regional or sectoral strategic documents, but NSCP summarizes all of these policies. And finally, the BTR reports consequences of implementation of each of these policies, specify for each measure how much energy was saved or what was the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. And if
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I would kindly ask you to speak up a bit because we have in our neighboring pavilions started the events, so we don't hear you really well now.
Speak louder. Okay. So the modeling, as we are talking about the modeling, then the primary documents of the specific composing the modeling scenarios is the NSCP, and the main purpose, the main intention why modeling is made in the NSCP is to explore if identified measures which are grouped in various scenarios and VAM scenarios are sufficient to reach those targets. Then in NDC, these scenarios also could be used as an analytical basis. And in LT-LEDS, there is also a purpose to provide various scenarios of reaching national targets, but also the net zero emissions scenario had to be presented in the LT-LEDS. And in BTR, actually provide also projections on reaching national targets and provide projections on greenhouse emissions and removals to report the progress toward the national first of all, climate goals, but also energy goals. So with all these metrics, with all this understanding of how all the documents have to be aligned, then let us see how much the energy national targets and priorities are aligned, then policies and measures. And if you are talking about the projections, then macroeconomic and other assumptions should be aligned. And the modeling tools has to be consistent that are used for making projections in various documents. The national targets are set in various documents, various strategic documents in Ukraine. We are mostly interested in the national climate targets, which actually was the first NDC while we were working on the first National Energy and Climate Plan and Energy Strategy prioritized climate neutrality for the energy sector, but what we all know now, that there is climate neutrality by 2050 for the entire economy, should be reached by 2050. That is stipulated by the climate law. And as we just recently heard by Mr. Kartashov, that the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions by 65% was confirmed in the second Ukrainian NDC. But also other targets are set in other strategic documents, sectoral documents such as energy strategy. Then what is important, that reaching national targets is not actually modeled. We should forget about modeling the targets for the scenarios that are set in that are presented in the strategic documents. Instead, what have to be shown is how these targets are actually approached. And this is done via scenario analysis where VAM and VAM scenarios are shown. And that was what we did in Ukraine. So we considered, of course, all the national targets were considered, but they are not explicitly modeled. They are considered in order to test if they are approached by the scenarios. And about the policy measures, as I said, that the primary document where all these policies and measures were summarized together and split into two scenarios with existing measures and with additional measures. It was the first National Energy and Climate Plan. And there were 70 scenarios, 70 measures that were grouped in the WEM scenario, and about 75, more than that, 75 scenarios, 75 measures that were grouped in the WAM scenario. They were grouped in 5 priority areas. The first one is the decarbonization, including the development of renewable energy sources. The second one is energy efficiency, and then energy markets development, energy security, and development of research and innovations. That's right. While all these policies were grouped in these scenarios, we kept all this formulation and used it for all the documents that we were working later on. So the same set of policies for WEM scenario was used for the for calculations made for the strategy, and the same set of scenarios, the same set of measures were used while we were working for the analytical basis for the for the second NDC. That is why WEM and WAM scenarios in LT-LEDS, NDC2 and BTR contain the same set of policies and measures primarily elaborated in the first National Energy and Climate Plan. As for the economic and demographic scenarios, then coming further to the energy modeling, that is evident that climate projections are based on the energy projections are based mostly on the macroeconomic projections and dependent on the economic activity on the one hand, and on the other hand on the demographic scenarios. Firstly, we specify what is the level of energy and structure of energy consumption, and then we can make estimations of the emissions of the greenhouse gases. Then normally, this is traditionally we work together with the Ministry of Economy to specify macroeconomic projection, and together with our colleagues from the Institute for Demography and Social Studies, we work to elaborate the demographic projection. Then economic and demographic assumptions were updated for the LT-LEDS and NDC comparing to the NSCP, and that is natural because NDC calculations were made almost 2 years ago, and NDC and LT-LEDS were developed, let's say, recently. I mean, a year after that, and that is why all the macroeconomic and demographic assumptions were updated. And more than that, I would say that while now, as I said before, we also engaged in the updating of the NSCP, then these assumptions, macroeconomic and demographic, will be updated once again. And the same, almost the same about the other assumptions, let's say assumptions on external uncontrolled variables. Then those are assumptions that are normally updated, like energy prices or new technology database, they were all the time updated, and this is a permanent work of our colleagues, of the modelers. But there are also pretty important assumptions about policy and about the consequences of war, which we cannot predict, we cannot model. That's why we have to make assumptions. When the war, when the war will be over, what the consequences of war we will have, what will be the type and the timing of the economic development after the war, then that is pretty difficult to say how this will be, but we have to make clear assumptions in order to make to make modeling. And also about the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, which is for the moment, which is on the occupied territories, and all the other such assumptions on external uncontrolled variables were elaborated together with the different ministries while we were working on NSCP, and from that time it was not changed. All this set of assumptions are set, and they are the same for the NSCP, for the LT-LEDS, and for the NDC. And as for the modeling tool, the same set of models were used. The Times Ukraine model, this is model that's used for the energy sector and for making estimations of the greenhouse gas emissions in the industrial processes. And then our colleagues, they use models for the waste sector, agriculture, and LULUCF. Of course, the models are permanently updated and improved. That is why the standard of this model that was 2 years ago differs from what we have now. We believe that for the moment our model is much more enhanced, much more improved, and that's why there is a difference between these models. But the results for sure they are comparable. That is why this is the scenarios that were developed for all the scenarios. As I said, this scenario with the existing measures and with additional measures. And as I mentioned, there should be the net zero emissions scenario for the LT-LEDS showing the trajectory for reaching climate neutrality. And this the set of scenarios. This is not our decision. It is a clear specification from the European regulation. And not showing all the results, but just to show what we finally got in the LT-LEDS and the NDC. We see the historical trajectory of greenhouse gas emissions and the projection starting from 2024 or 2025, actually 2024. Because for the moment we don't have actual data for 2024, that's why we made calculations. And we can see the difference between the set target or the set constraints on greenhouse gas emissions and the actual trajectory. So according to the scenario with existing measures, we may expect for even increasing the greenhouse gas emissions, while under scenario with additional measures we can reach almost to 90% of reduction of greenhouse gas emissions comparing to 1990 level. But what I should say once again, these scenarios were updated, and the set of policies and measures will be updated during the process of updating the National Energy and Climate Plan. That I will say that we could expect some different trajectories, different results. Let's say on 2 or 3 months, when we could be presenting the results for the updated NECP. But of course, this will be not the conceptual difference. This will be like adjustment of these trajectories. And this is about the aligning of these documents. And another portion of questions we normally get is the portion about the adaptation. Because for the moment, Ukraine doesn't have all the documents in the sphere of adaptation policies. We are supposed to prepare the adaptation, national communication adaptation. We are supposed to develop the new strategy on adaptation, but there is a specific chapter on adaptation in the LT-LEDS, and we are lucky that together with us, our colleague Galina Trepolska, who was actually responsible for the preparation of this chapter. That's why I will pass the floor to Galina.
Roman, we would kindly suggest, if it's not the last point of your speech, maybe you could finalize your speech and then we pass the floor to Galina afterwards on the adaptation policies alignment. And I could ask you to finalize your speech in like 2 minutes because we are limited in time here and we have upcoming events at the pavilion.
I would ask Alexander to talk about the biannual transparency report.
Yeah. Good morning, dear colleagues who are in Belém, and good afternoon in Europe. So just a few words about BTR, Biennial Transparency Report of Ukraine, which was prepared with support of GIZ and of course in cooperation with Ministry of Economy, Environment and Agriculture and in general with government of Ukraine. So I want to say that very important to have a well-prepared different strategies, plan, etc. But also very important to monitoring how it's implementing. So the preparation and publication of the first biennial transparency report, despite the war, confirmed Ukraine's fulfillment its obligation and reflect to transition to more systematic, transparent, and consistent management of climate policy. As well as public in-depth and broad monitoring of its implementation. The main purpose of BTR is to ensure the clarity regarding the climate action in view of UNFCCC objectives and their enhanced implementation. This is not only the first international systematic document on climate plan, but also a national one. So it is also very important for Ukraine and international partners of Ukraine. But please note that Russia, in violation of international law, included temporarily occupied Ukrainian territories, Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia, Kherson regions, and also Autonomous Republic of Crimea and city of Sevastopol in its report. Ukraine's BTR once again reminds the world of the inadmissibility of Russian actions, and including in this matter, and presents Ukrainian data and position in international climate policy. But due to the war, much information also is a big challenge for us was to prepare first BTR, because due to the war, much information was closed for obvious reason, which was a significant obstacle for us. But thanks to the Institute cooperation with the government in preparation other strategic documents like Roman presented today, NDC, LEDS, NECP, so we got very good results, and and we hope these international reviewers will support us on this area. Next slide, please. BTR is very shortly consists a lot of different chapters, but also consists the monitoring of implemented mitigation policies. Roman presented some policies for NSCP, for example, but here also you can see how numbers of different mitigation policy was monitored. And of course, adaptation actions. Thanks to our colleagues, especially Galina Tripolska here, we presented very complete information on adaptation to climate change, and even provided this information to a European Environmental Agency and received positive feedbacks. Next slide, please. Another issue or big core of BTR is a big part of BTR is financial regulatory frameworks. So we are monitoring which achievements which results Ukraine achieved in financial, in attraction finance in climate actions, and what's the gaps we can see. For example, no national green taxonomy, sectoral requirements and standards for green projects verification. It's also difficult and incompleteness on financial data, not only climate, energy, economic, etc., but financial also. But each chapter is presented on methodology how we monitoring it. Another point again, for example, for implemented NDC, we need more than 120 billions for period 2021-2030 till 2030. Yeah, but as we can see on the results, just for 2 years of monitoring from 2021-22, we attract less 2 billions, but in average it should be 24. But of course, due to the war, it's a big challenge to attract investment in climate mitigation and adaptation. But very interesting that a lot of investment, first of all, is going to the energy sector, transport and storage, but less in adaptation and other sectors. Next slide, please. Also important chapter in BTR, it's a capacity building and technology transfer. So we monitored this process in Ukraine for 2 years, monitoring years. So, and we see just only not only identified 35 projects. It's not too much for our understanding, but, and first of all, again, this transfer technology related with cross-cutting processes or water and sanitation processes, also in energy in general. On the next slide, I want to pass to the floor to the Roman to provide some summary of the presentation. Thank you.
A very short summary. Probably this is really the unique case in Ukraine that over the past 2 years, Ukraine for the first time developed a series of program, strategic and monitoring document, and with as we think and we groundly think that they're totally aligned technically and methodologically and substantially. And of course, there are limitations about which Sasha just mentioned, for example, about the limited availability of reliable statistical information. But for the moment, UNDP is working currently to finally adopt the LT-LEDS, and we're expecting that GIZ with the Green Economy Project will continue providing support for the implementation of NDC. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roman and Alexander, for your insightful presentation. And as promised, I would like to pass the floor to Galina Tripolska to walk us through the main adaptation policies and measures that are currently included in key climate policy documents in Ukraine.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay, hello everyone, both offline and online. I find that it is a bit difficult to speak because our neighbors apparently in the neighboring pavilion are louder than us, but I'll do my best. Okay, so right now we have the strategy for environmental safety and climate change adaptation, which was developed with the most kind help and support of UNDP. And the strategy contains 11 vulnerable sectors such as energy, agriculture, biodiversity, tourism, and many others. So roughly speaking, we would like to say that overall, the, let's say, vast majority of actions and measures on adaptation and vulnerable sectors, the vast majority of those are about water. Mostly we are talking about the scarcity of water, but in some cases we are talking about the abundance of water, which is floods. It is important to say that many adaptation measures have mitigation co-benefits and many mitigation measures have adaptation co-benefits. For instance, when we implement renewables, which is mitigation, they require much less water, incomparable, really like less water compared to fossil fuels. So there are certain, let's say, adaptation benefits. When we talk about the long-term measures and actions in adaptation, we have to understand that measures need to be taken like all the time, constantly, repeatedly, iteratively, and so on. The only exclusion would be probably like when someone builds certain, let's say, items of great infrastructure, such as dump or whatever. Apart from that, you have, like I said, you have to implement iterative adaptation measures iteratively. All layers of governance are extremely important, even though we understand that, let's say, the main burden of adaptation is imposed on the local level. Nonetheless, the representative of governmental agencies and bodies, they have to implement standards to enable local communities to work with these standards. To translate it into a practical language, I would bring the example. For instance, we read that certain communities or small towns, wherever, for instance, they renewed their drainage system. So it is very curious to know whether they took into consideration the, let's say, climate projections, and whether they took into consideration the possibility of floods and very heavy rains. I guess the time will show, but this is the thing that we have to work on, and the existing strategy and the action plans for its implementation, they sort of provided the mainstreaming of this adaptation considerations into all policies, let's say, of all level. This is what we really saw yesterday in Belém. For those who have missed, yesterday there was a heavy rain and certain parts of the city were flooded so badly that it caused the collapse of the transport system. Similarly, similar things can happen in Ukraine, and for instance, in Odessa region, the very heavy rain led to 8 or 9 human deaths, if I am not mistaken, a couple months ago. Right now, at COP, one of the priorities is adaptation, and I hope that probably as a result of this COP, maybe the set of adaptation indicators will be adopted. Right now, let's say the preliminary list consists of approximately 100 of indicators, but the time will show how many of them will remain valid until the end of the COP and later on. I myself impose significant hopes on this set of indicators, because as you all know, next year we have to develop and adopt a new adaptation strategy. And usually countries have really hard time to, let's say, establish their adaptation goals. Usually these goals have to be very precise. I don't know, for instance, like to increase the forestation level by 1% or something like that. So I hope that it will enable us to have and to be able to formulate some of our adaptation measures. And once these measures are and priorities and goals, and once these priorities are formulated, hopefully we will be able to understand how much money we will need to, let's say, for the implementation of the new adaptation strategy. Also, we have to, when we speak about the long-term measures, we have to understand how, we have to learn how to implement the nature-based solutions, and gradually we have to, in cases where possible, we have to monetize these nature-based solutions, let's say the value of nature-based solutions. Of course, it is very difficult to monetize the value of shadow, for instance, but when it is agrivoltaics, then it is easier because you can calculate the gain of the yield of the agricultural crop or something like that. Nonetheless, the nature-based solutions have to be wider adopted, and the respective documents, I know the drafts of the documents have been prepared, and we are very much looking forward for them to be adopted. Also, as of now, we as a country have a slightly hard time to conduct the cost-benefit analysis. I know that some of the countries do it, and European Union has done it for its member states. But I hope that in the coming years we'll see some progress in Ukraine regarding that. Hopefully it will sort of enable wider implementation of the adaptation measures, because now we understand that mitigation measures are slightly easier and better and eager to pay back adaptation measures, and sometimes like we have a hard time to understand or to explain why do we have to do some investments in adaptation at all. Also, I would like having the experience of participating in preparation of BTRs and other LEDs and other strategic documents. I would like to say that we have to remain transparent. We have to, I mean, as a country, we have to put more efforts into reporting to remain our reporting transparent. We have difficulties with human capital as for different reasons, and of course because of the war. Nonetheless, we require much more experts in adaptation. Our international partners require it from us, and we do our best to cope with these requirements and do what we can. Well, that's pretty much it from my side. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Halina, for such a focused intervention, and thank you for pointing out main actions that need to be considered in developing the climate policy overall. And I think it's important that currently we are speaking about adaptation as an integral part of every policy document, because it didn't used to be the same. And currently we are considering co-benefits of mitigation actions in adaptation or co-benefits of adaptation actions in mitigation. And of course, it's not easy to explain all of these things, all of these co-benefits, and how these measures can be investable and how they can promote achieving not only the climate goals, but also contribute to developing the good economy and developing of decarbonized, but on the other hand, well-thought economic development in Ukraine. And speaking about the financial side of implementation of climate policy, I would like to ask you, Mr. Özbagatli, you have mentioned that NDCs and LT-LEDS and other documents, they need to become financial instruments that could promote achieving the climate ambitions via investments. So when coming back to Ukraine, when speaking about Ukraine, or maybe from point of view of international cooperation, what financial instruments or measures, policies are most promising for Ukraine to undertake in order to promote these actionable solutions and making NDCs implementable and promoting investments?
Thanks a lot. This is a great question, and I want to scale up the question in terms of finance for development. And actually, development requires something that you own, that you can shape it, you can manage it, or you can, improve it without any additional or external input. And it means that the sustainable development requires two critical things. One is the human capital, human youth. One is the really skilled people. That people are really shaping today and future of a country. So that's why we have the Human Development Index and Human Development Report that UNDP is doing. And second part is that your biogeography. I mean, you cannot create it. You can only save it, what you do now in the war. And you can really benefit from it. You can just adapt it. That's why adaptation is critically important. So building up your people and nature, you can, let's say, put a table. And in that table, you need invite someone, right? For putting some funds or making some investment or trade. So you share something. And I think the size of the table is bigger than climate finance. So now we are talking about 300 billion, 1.3 trillion. These are very important, and it needs to be distributed and accessed fairly and just way, but also quick. But beyond that, we are talking about hundreds, trillions of dollars that running the economy of this world. And it means that the finance that your domestic and international pillars for the public and private should be blended in one pot. So if we have the NDCs, and I mean, you did a great job, link it with the NECP, link it with the long-term strategy, link it with the national development strategies and everything. So you have a direction to go. And it gives also a signal to a world saying that, okay, I'm moving from here to there. And then the transition, when we are talking about green just transition, it requires the funds. And some parts is cost, some parts are investment. For example, any money going to adaptation is an investment because you keep your people and planet, biodiversity. And there are some costs, yes, but these costs, let's say, for phasing out from fossils, needs to be, well planned in terms of in a just way, but also making in a, let's say, costly reasonable. And in the costly reasonable part, yes, we can go for having some grants, loans, blended finance, but also need to think about, okay, what are the fiscal tools and financial resilience of my country and how I can make sure that I access more money, okay, but actually how to manage that money I access. Because what is the $1 return back to the society and to planet and to climate is critically important. That's why I think it's important to focus on decentralized renewable energy rather than big energy complex, because it increases your resilience, it increases the cost for distribution, and it is good for inclusion. Or it is good to focus on the, let's say, water management in a way that you do not extract from your nature, but use it in a wisely and sustainable way, or your forest. So rather than, using the timber for an extractive way, how to use the timber for substituting the cement for, I don't know, buildings, or how to make your forests are healthy against the threat of climate with pests and wildfires and others. So we all know the tools for climate finance. There is GCF, GF, Adaptation Fund. We all know the, other tools like Article 6, and we know the taxation with the emission trading system and everything. But I think the shift should be, okay, I have things in my heart. It is people and planet in my country, how I can improve it, and looking beyond the only climate finance, but see the broader finance for development. That's why UNDP is doing INFF, what we call it Integrated National Finance Framework. And we link the INFF with NDCs and SDGs. And this is one part of the climate promise forward. So we want to work with you on that. Thank you.
So much, and thank you for putting it like this. It's important, of course, not only to look at the particular instruments, but to look at the bigger picture, to see it all. So thank you. And Helena would like to add on this as well.
Yes, I would like to add just a small example from Ukrainian case and Ukrainian experience. When we had to estimate the expenses that we already allocate and spend on adaptation, I was thinking to myself on the first glance, not so much is going on, so probably it's not going to be that much. But then I learned that there are some things which we call environmental passports of the regions. And actually all the regions, they implement a lot of actions which are classified and called as environmental. But in reality, I would classify the vast majority of those measures as adaptational measures. So I guess this is an example of how to, first of all, to, let's say, allocate the scarce financing, how to use it rationally, how to use different tools and kinds of financial instruments, let's say, on a particular level of the country.
Thank you, Helena. And we already expired the time of our panel, unfortunately. But if anyone from the audience has the question to our panelists while the panelists are still here, I will open the floor for our discussions from the for the questions from the audience. So if you have any questions, please, you are welcome to ask them. If not, of course, it was an interesting.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, please. It's nice.
So we have some people here. What do you expect from COP30 here? So tell me or let's say the first three things that you expect from here.
Now we have
Ukrainian for Ukrainians.
It's an open mic now, so I'm passing the mic to you.
Yeah, hi, I'm Diana from the Ukrainian Climate Network. So I'm following actually the negotiations, but I would say that for Ukraine, I think the biggest expectations here is mostly the pavilion in the connections and the networking and the bilateral agreements. And also this is the first thing. The second one is to present how war is affecting our environment and how we can cope with it. And third, to present all the projects and all the things we are doing now despite the war is going on. Although I'm not that satisfied with our NDC, I have to stress that here, but still we are working on it and we are hoping that the consultations will go on. And then I invite you, if it's okay, tomorrow we will have a panel discussion here at 3 o'clock and we will discuss what the civil society is doing in the means in terms during the war and for green recovery. So first thing, networking and bilateral agreements. The second thing is to present the projects and what we are doing, and the third thing to stress what is going on in Ukraine and how war is affecting Ukraine.
Thank you for a very interesting question. I'm a Ukrainian mayor of a small Ukrainian city community with 16,000 people, and we have motto of our community that Pustomety is a community of opportunities, and COP is the place where we can have new opportunities, new information, new knowledges, new communication, new meetings. So I search for these opportunities for my Ukrainian city in climate adaptation and for development for my city.
Thank you. I'm a climate expert from Ukraine, and most of all, I want to say that in this we can see the results of what we done for the year from previous COP. And we can see our results, our achievements, and we can share with our colleagues, with our partners, with these results. Yeah.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Nuri, for suggesting this nice activity. It's very nice to have our audience engaged. Yeah, and I would like to thank all of our panelists, both offline and online. It was quite an interesting and rich discussion. And of course, thank you, our audience, for your engaged participation. And thank you for following this discussion online, our participants online. And thanks to all of our partners and Ukrainian government for this cooperation that promotes new climate goals and inclusion of climate goals in other sectoral policies. And we look forward for the next steps of implementation, and we look forward that this cooperation will promote really achievement of climate goals in Ukraine. So thank you so much, and I wish you a nice day today.